The portal exploded with sickly green energy, tearing through dimensions like claws through flesh. He-Man tumbled through the void between worlds, Skeletor's mocking laughter echoing behind him as reality twisted and screamed. The power sword blazed in his grip, trying to anchor him to Eternia, but the dark magic was too strong. With a bone-jarring crash, he slammed through concrete and steel, the impact crater spiderwebbing across an urban street he didn't recognize. Rain fell like tears on a dying world. He-Man rose slowly, muscles protesting as he took in his surroundings. Tall buildings, not Castle Grayskull's spires, but strange metal and glass structures, loomed against a blood-red sky. Fires burned unchecked across the cityscape. Cars sat abandoned in the streets, doors hanging open, some still running. The air reeked of smoke, decay, and something else. Something wrong. A scream pierced the night. Without hesitation, He-Man sprinted toward the sound, his enhanced speed carrying him 3 blocks in seconds. He rounded a corner and stopped dead. A woman in torn business clothes ran desperately toward him, terror etched across her face. Behind her, a mob of people shambled forward with jerking, unnatural movements. At first, He-Man thought they were under some spell, but as they entered the firelight, he saw the truth. Gray flesh hung from their bones, milky eyes stared at nothing, blood and gore decorated their ragged clothes, their mouths opened in groans that held no humanity. The woman stumbled, the creatures lunged. He-Man's fist connected with the first attacker's chest, expecting to send it flying. Instead, his hand punched clean through the ribcage with a wet crunch. The thing didn't scream or stop. It clawed at his arm, trying to bite him, even as dark blood poured from the wound. He-Man threw it aside in shock and grabbed the woman, pulling her behind him. "What sorcery is this?" he demanded, facing the advancing horde. They're dead," the woman sobbed. "Everyone's dead or dying. The city's infected." More of the creatures poured from alleys and doorways. Dozens, hundreds. He-Man's warrior instincts took over. The power sword sang as he swung it in wide arcs, cutting through the undead with brutal efficiency. But for everyone he felled, 3 more appeared. They showed no fear, no pain, no awareness beyond an insatiable hunger. "Where can we find safety?" He-Man shouted over the groans. "The police station." "Raccoon Police Department. Some people got inside before—" A creature lunged from a car roof, tackling her to the ground. Its teeth snapped toward her throat. He-Man grabbed it by the neck and hurled it 50 feet into a storefront. Glass exploded inward. He pulled the woman up and into his arms. "Hold tight." He leaped, clearing 30 feet in a single bound, then another, carrying them both across rooftops while below, an ocean of the infected followed. The woman directed him between landmarks, a clock tower, a theater, a pharmacy, until a fortified stone building came into view. Barricades blocked the entrance. Gunfire crackled from upper windows. He-Man landed in front of the main doors and pounded once. "Survivors, open!" The doors cracked open. A man in a tattered police uniform stared up at He-Man's 7-foot frame, at his barbarian garb and glowing sword, at the woman in his arms. His mouth worked soundlessly. "I said open!" He-Man roared as infected sprinted around the corner. The officer stumbled backward and He-Man pushed inside. 3 other survivors slammed the door shut behind him and threw the locks. Fists and bodies immediately began hammering against the barrier from outside. He-Man set the woman down gently. 5 pairs of eyes stared at him in the flickering emergency lights. The police officer, the woman he'd saved, 2 civilians in blood-stained clothes, and a young woman with short brown hair wearing what remained of body armor. "What?" the police officer began. "What the hell are you?" He-Man looked down at the power sword. A hairline crack ran up the blade's center, pulsing with weak light. His heart sank. The portal had damaged it. "I am He-Man," he said quietly, meeting their terrified gazes. "Champion of Eternia. And I don't know where I am, but I swear by the power of Grayskull, I will protect you." The young woman in body armor stepped forward, one hand on her pistol. Her eyes were hard, professional, but he saw the exhaustion and fear beneath. "I'm Jill Valentine, STRS Raccoon City Police Department." She glanced at the others, then back to him. "Eternia? That's not on any map I know. But right now I don't care if you're from Mars. Can you fight? I am the greatest warrior of my world." "Good." Jill's jaw tightened. "Because this city is dying and we're running out of time. If you want to see more characters enter different universes, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character and the universe you'd want to see them in down in the comments below. This is going to be legendary." The Raccoon Police Department was a tomb pretending to be a fortress. Emergency lights cast everything in shades of red and shadow. The main hall's marble floor was slick with blood. Barricades made from desks and filing cabinets blocked corridors. Bullet casings littered every corner. The infected pounded ceaselessly at the doors and boarded windows, their moans creating a constant backdrop of horror. Jill led He-Man to what remained of the command center, a partially fortified office with a working radio and scattered paperwork. The other survivors trailed behind, still staring at the warrior like he might vanish if they looked away. "This is Officer Marvin Branna," Jill introduced the injured policeman who'd opened the door. Blood seeped through bandages on his shoulder. "Rita and David, civilians who made it here yesterday. And you already saved Claire." The woman He-Man had rescued managed a weak smile. "Thank you. I was looking for my brother when they came." He-Man nodded gravely. "In my world, we face magic, monsters, and Skeletor's endless schemes. But these creatures..." He gestured toward the doors where the infected still clawed. "What manner of evil creates such abominations?" "Not evil," Jill said bitterly, spreading documents across a desk. "Corporate greed. Umbrella Corporation. They're a pharmaceutical company, supposedly. But they've been developing biological weapons, the T-virus. It reanimates dead tissue, turns people into those things out there. And 3 days ago, it got loose in Raccoon City." He-Man studied the papers, medical reports, accident documentation. Internal memos warning of containment breaches, all ignored. His grip on the power sword tightened. "They did this deliberately?" "We can't prove it," Marvin said, wincing as he adjusted his bandage. "But all the evidence points to Umbrella covering up accidents until the outbreak got too big to contain. Now the whole city's infected, 200,000 people, and most of them are dead or worse." The number hit He-Man like a physical blow. In all his battles for Eternia, he'd never faced devastation on such a scale. "The government's response?" he asked. Jill's laugh was hollow. "Quarantine. They've got the city sealed. Nobody gets in or out. And rumors say they're considering more permanent solutions. Meaning, they might sterilize the entire city to contain the infection." He-Man's eyes widened. "Destroy everything. The survivors, acceptable losses," Jill spat. "That's what we are to them, just numbers on a report." A crash echoed from somewhere deeper in the station. Everyone jumped except He-Man, who moved instantly to the doorway, sword ready. The infected's moaning continued unabated from outside, so whatever made that noise came from within. "We're not alone in here," David whispered, his face pale. "We've been hearing things, movement in the basement, something big." He-Man exchanged glances with Jill. The STARS officer checked her pistol, a standard 9mm Beretta, and moved to his side. "We need to secure this building if we're staying," she said, "and I need to know what you can really do. That sword, it's not just for show, is it? The power sword is the key to my transformation, He-Man explained. It channels the power of Castle Grayskull itself. But he held it up so she could see the crack. The portal damaged it. I can feel the magic weakening. What happens if it breaks? He-Man's silence was answer enough. Another crash, closer now, followed by heavy footsteps that didn't match the shuffling gait of the infected. Jill raised her pistol. He-Man stepped forward, putting himself between the sound and the survivors. From the shadows of the eastern hallway, something emerged. It had been human once. Now it stood 8 feet tall, its body a grotesque mass of exposed muscle and pulsing veins. One arm had mutated into a massive claw that scraped the floor. Its remaining eye glowed with malevolent intelligence. Not the blank hunger of the infected outside, but something aware, something that enjoyed the hunt. Tyrant, Jill breathed. Oh God. They actually deployed one in the city. The creature's gaze fixed on He-Man. It tilted its head, studying him the way a predator studies unexpected prey. Then it charged. He-Man met the attack head-on. The tyrant's claw swung with incredible force. He-Man caught it with his free hand, muscles straining. For the first time since arriving in this world, he faced something with strength approaching his own. The tyrant pressed forward, its claw inches from He-Man's face. "Get them out of here!" He-Man roared. Jill didn't hesitate. She grabbed Marvin and pushed the others toward the western corridor. "Move! Go!" The tyrant backhanded He-Man with its normal arm, sending him crashing through a wall. Plaster and wood exploded around him. He rolled to his feet, tasting blood. The creature stalked through the hole it had made, its footsteps shaking the floor. He-Man raised the power sword. "I have faced Skeletor, Beastman, and Faker himself. You are nothing but a twisted mockery of life." He swung. The blade connected with the tyrant's claw in a shower of sparks and dark ichor. The creature howled, a sound mixing pain and rage, and smashed into He-Man like a battering ram. They crashed through another wall into what had been an interrogation room. The fight was brutal, primal. He-Man's supernatural strength against bioengineered horror. Furniture shattered, walls crumbled. The tyrant's claw raked across He-Man's chest, drawing blood. He-Man's fist caved in the creature's ribcage. Back and forth they battled, neither willing to yield. Then He-Man saw it, a support beam, weakened by fire damage. He drove his shoulder into the tyrant's midsection, pushing it back until its spine hit the beam. Then He-Man grabbed the creature's head with both hands and drove his knee upward with all his might. The tyrant's head snapped back. The support beam cracked. With a groan of stressed metal and wood, the ceiling section collapsed, burying the creature under tons of debris. He-Man staggered back, breathing hard. Blood ran from cuts across his arms and chest. He looked down at the power sword. The crack had widened. Jill found He-Man standing in the wreckage, staring at his damaged sword. The others huddled behind her, weapons ready, expecting the monster to rise again. But the rubble remained still. "Is it dead?" Claire asked quietly. "Nothing stays dead in this city," Jill muttered. She approached He-Man, noting his wounds. "You're hurt." "Surface damage." He-Man flexed his hand. Already the cuts were closing, his Eternian physiology healing at an accelerated rate. But the sword... He held it up so the crack caught the emergency lights. Dark energy leaked from the fissure like smoke. The magic binding it is failing. What does that mean for you? He-Man met her eyes. Prince Adam and He-Man are two halves of the same person. The sword allows me to transform, to access the power of Grayskull. If it fails completely, he paused, choosing words carefully. I will still be a skilled warrior, but I'll be as mortal and vulnerable as any of you. How long? I don't know. Hours, days. Each time I call upon its power now, the crack widens. I must use it wisely. Marvin limped forward, pressing a hand to his shoulder wound. His face had gone pale, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cold. Then we need to get you out of this city. All of us. Before that thing. He glanced at the rubble. Before more of those things find us. The exits are sealed, Jill reminded him. Military blockade on all roads out. We'd need transport and a way through the quarantine. Or a way to stop the infection at its source, He-Man said. He picked up one of the scattered umbrella documents, studying the corporate logo, a red and white umbrella. Something about it reminded him of Skeletor's symbols, innocuous on the surface but concealing rot beneath. These papers spoke of laboratories, underground facilities. If Umbrella created this plague, they must have the means to end it. A cure, Rita spoke up hopefully. They'd have a cure. Maybe, Jill said, but doubt laced her voice. More likely they have research data, samples, information about what they've done. But getting to it... She pulled out a damaged city map from her vest and spread it across an intact desk. The main Umbrella facility is here, the Spencer Mansion, just outside city limits, where this whole nightmare started. My team investigated it weeks ago. Most of them died. Her finger moved to another location. But there's a secondary lab beneath Raccoon City Hospital, and another under the old factory district. The entire city's built on top of Umbrella's real operations. He-Man studied the map, his tactical mind, honed by years commanding Eternia's forces, assessing the situation. We need transportation, weapons, and a clear objective. Which facility holds the most vital information? Hospital's closest, David offered. Maybe 15 blocks. 15 blocks of infected, Jill countered. Thousands of them between here and there. We'd never make it on foot. Then we don't walk. He-Man pointed to another marked location on the map. What is this building? Parking garage, municipal vehicles, police cars, armored trucks. Jill's eyes widened. If any survived the first days, we could use them to break through. Then that's our first objective. He-Man rolled up the map. We secure transport. Then we infiltrate Umbrella's facility and find evidence of their crimes, and whatever knowledge might save this city. That's suicide, Marvin said flatly. We should be trying to escape, not going deeper into the outbreak zone. Escape to where? He-Man's voice carried the authority of someone used to command. Beyond these walls, this corporation will continue creating horrors. More cities will burn. More innocents will die. In my world, I learned that evil unchallenged only grows stronger. We strike at the heart of this darkness, or we're merely delaying the inevitable. Silence fell over the group. They looked at each other, exhausted, terrified, pushed beyond their limits. But something in He-Man's words, in his unwavering conviction, sparked something they'd lost over the past 3 days. Hope. Claire spoke first. My brother's out there somewhere, Chris. He's STARS, like Jill. If there's any chance of stopping this, of saving people... She swallowed hard. I'll go. I'm already in, Jill said. This is my city. These were my people. Umbrella needs to answer for what they've done. David and Rita exchanged glances. David shook his head. We're not soldiers. We're just trying to survive. Then stay here, He-Man said without judgment. Guard the station. Help any other survivors who make it this far. Every role in this battle matters. Marvin tried to stand straighter but winced. His shoulder wound had soaked through the bandages again. I'll stay with them. Someone needs to maintain the barricades and work the radio. Maybe we can still reach the military, convince them not to... He didn't finish. Smart, Jill agreed. She turned to He-Man. We should move soon. Those things outside will break through eventually, and whatever you buried won't stay down forever." As if summoned by her words, a groan echoed from the rubble pile. Not the mindless moan of infected, but something deeper, angrier. He-Man's hand tightened on the power sword. "How long until sunrise?" Jill checked her watch. The crystal was cracked, but it still worked. 3 hours. "Then we move at first light." The infected seem drawn to darkness and shadow. Perhaps daylight will offer some advantage. Maybe. Jill didn't sound convinced. But the real monsters, the things Umbrella engineered, they hunt whenever they want. He-Man looked at each of them in turn. These people had endured horrors beyond imagination, yet they still fought, still hoped. They reminded him of the people of Eternia, facing down Skeletor's armies with nothing but courage and determination. "In my world," he said quietly, "we have a saying. I have the power. It means we all carry strength within us, strength to protect others, to stand against evil, to fight even when defeat seems certain." He raised the cracked sword. "This blade may be failing, but the power it represents, the courage, the will to protect, that cannot be broken, not while we stand together." The rubble pile shifted. Something massive moved beneath it. "Gear up," Jill ordered, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "Whatever comes next, we face it ready." He-Man nodded. The power sword pulsed weakly in his grip, its magic bleeding away with each passing moment. But Jill was right. When dawn came, they would move. And Umbrella Corporation would learn that some warriors fight not with magic or technology, but with something far more dangerous, an unbreakable will. The 3 hours until dawn felt like an eternity. He-Man helped reinforce the barricades while Jill and Claire gathered supplies, ammunition, medical kits, anything useful they could carry. The infected continued their relentless assault on the station's exterior, but the doors held. For now. The rubble pile hadn't moved again, but He-Man remained vigilant. He'd learned long ago that monsters rarely died as easily as they should. As false dawn began filtering through the boarded windows, Marvin pulled out a police tactical vest and offered it to He-Man. Might not fit perfectly, but it's better than nothing. He-Man examined the Kevlar vest, then shook his head. "Your weapons won't harm me as they would you. Save it for those who need it." "Confident," Jill observed, checking her pistol's magazine for the dozenth time. "But those things out there don't use guns. They use teeth and claws. Then I'll ensure they don't get close enough to use them." He-Man looked at his crossed chest straps and fur boots, attire designed for Eternia's environment, not urban combat. "Though I admit your world's fashion is different." Despite everything, Claire almost smiled. "You'll fit right in at a comic convention, if we ever have those again." The radio on Marvin's desk crackled suddenly with static. Then a voice broke through. Professional, cold, military. "Attention Raccoon City survivors. This is Umbrella Biohazard Countermeasure Service. We are deploying specialized units to extract corporate personnel and secure vital research materials. Remain in your current locations. Do not attempt to leave the quarantine zone. Any unauthorized personnel encountered in secure facilities will be treated as hostile threats." The transmission cut off. "UBCS," Jill said darkly. "Umbrella's private military. They're not here to save people. They're here to clean up evidence." "Then we have competition." He-Man moved to the window, carefully pulling aside a board to peer outside. The sky was shifting from black to gray. In the growing light, he could see the true scope of the devastation. Hundreds of infected filled the streets, their bodies casting long shadows in the pre-dawn gloom. Blood stained everything. Cars burned. Bodies, both moving and still, littered the pavement. But beyond the immediate horror, he spotted their target. 3 blocks north, the parking garage rose like a concrete fortress, its entrance partially blocked by an overturned delivery truck. "There," he pointed. "The garage. I see vehicles on the upper levels." Jill joined him at the window. "That's our route, but the street's packed with infected. Even with your strength, we'll get swarmed." He-Man studied the buildings lining the route. Fire escapes, rooftops, narrow alleys. "We don't take the street. We go up. Parkour." Claire looked doubtful. "I'm not exactly Spider-Man." "No," He-Man said, "but I am strong enough to carry both of you. If we move from rooftop to rooftop, we avoid the majority of the infected below." Jill considered this, her tactical mind running scenarios. "It could work. The buildings are close enough. But if you miss a jump..." "I won't." He-Man's voice carried absolute certainty. They gathered their minimal gear. Jill took point with her pistol. Claire borrowed a shotgun from the station's armory. And He-Man carried nothing but the power sword. Marvin, David, and Rita barricaded themselves in the command center with promises to maintain radio contact. At the back entrance, a service door leading to an alley, Jill cracked it open. The alley was clear, but the moans echoed from both ends. He-Man stepped out first, scanning for threats. A single infected shuffled at the far end, too far to be an immediate problem. "Fire escape," Jill whispered, pointing upward. He-Man sheathed the power sword across his back and crouched. "Claire, get on." She hesitated only a moment before climbing onto his back. He stood smoothly, her added weight barely noticeable to his enhanced strength. Then, without warning, he jumped. Claire bit back a scream as they soared upward. He-Man's legs propelling them 20 feet straight up to grab the fire escape's lowest rung. Metal groaned under their combined weight, but held. He pulled them up with one arm, then reached down for Jill. She grabbed his hand and he hauled her up effortlessly. Together, they climbed to the roof. From this vantage, Raccoon City's death throes spread before them like a vision of hell. Smoke columns rose throughout the urban sprawl. Fires burned unchecked, and everywhere the infected wandered in massive hordes, drawn by the city's dying heartbeat. "By the power of Grayskull," He-Man whispered. "How did it come to this?" "Corporate greed," Jill answered bitterly. The T-virus was supposed to be the ultimate biological weapon. Umbrella planned to sell it to militaries, terrorists, anyone with enough money. They didn't care about the consequences. He-Man's jaw tightened. "In my world, Skeletor seeks power for domination, but this is evil of a different kind. Evil that wears a suit and counts profits while people die." "Welcome to Earth," Claire muttered. They moved across the rooftops, He-Man carrying them both when gaps were too wide for normal humans to cross. Twice, infected on lower fire escapes, noticed them and began climbing. Each time, He-Man dealt with them quickly, a sword strike, a powerful kick that sent them plummeting back down. The power sword sang each time it cut, but the crack widened slightly with every use. They were one building away from the garage when a new sound split the air. Rotors. A helicopter appeared over the city skyline, black and unmarked, heading toward the city center. UBCS, Jill identified. Moving personnel into position. The helicopter passed overhead, close enough that He-Man could see armed soldiers inside. They didn't look down, didn't notice 3 people on a rooftop among thousands of infected. The helicopter continued toward a tall building marked with Umbrella's logo, a regional office or command center. "They're coordinating from there," Jill said, "probably planning to destroy evidence before anyone can..." The parking garage exploded. Not the whole structure, just the entrance level. A massive fireball erupted from where the overturned truck had been, sending debris and flames skyward. The shockwave nearly knocked them off the roof. He-Man grabbed both women, keeping them stable as the building beneath them shook. When the smoke cleared, the garage entrance was an inferno. Any vehicles on the lower levels would be destroyed or inaccessible. "They're destroying escape routes," Claire said in horror. "They don't want anyone getting out." He-Man's eyes blazed with fury. He'd seen evil in many forms, but this calculated cruelty struck something deep. On Eternia, when Skeletor attacked, at least he did so openly. This shadowy corporation hid behind legitimacy while orchestrating genocide. "New plan," Jill said grimly. "If they're destroying vehicles, they don't want witnesses reaching the outside world, which means whatever evidence exists in those underground facilities is even more valuable," He-Man finished. "They'll be heading there next to destroy or extract it. Or they're already there." Another explosion rocked the city, this one from the hospital district, then another from the factory area. Umbrella was systematically destroying its own facilities, erasing any trace of responsibility. He-Man looked at the cracked power sword on his back, then at the two women beside him. They had no transport now, no easy escape. Umbrella's forces were moving to eliminate evidence, and somewhere in this dying city, the truth about the T-virus, the proof needed to bring this corporation to justice, was being systematically erased. But one facility hadn't exploded yet. One target remained. "The underground lab," He-Man said, "beneath this police station's district. You said there was one." Jill pulled out her map, now crumpled and stained. "The old Nest facility. It's accessed through the sewers. But if Umbrella knows we're onto them..." She didn't finish. "Then they'll send their worst," He-Man said grimly. He drew the power sword, and despite the crack, it still gleamed with determination. "Let them come. I didn't survive Skeletor's dungeons and Beastman's traps to fall to corporate mercenaries." Claire checked her shotgun. "So we're really doing this? Going underground into Umbrella's territory while they're actively destroying everything?" "Yes," He-Man said simply. "Because if we don't, this evil continues. Other cities burn, more innocents die. And I did not come to this world, trapped here by accident or fate, to stand idle while darkness wins." Jill met his eyes and found the same unbreakable resolve she'd seen in her fallen STRS teammates. "Then we go to the Nest. We get proof, and we expose Umbrella if it's the last thing we do." Below them, a new sound joined the infected's moans. Military vehicles rolling into the city, their lights cutting through the dawn. Umbrella's forces were moving into position. The real battle was about to begin. The sewers beneath Raccoon City were a nightmare made manifest. He-Man led the way through waist-deep water that reeked of decay and chemicals. The power sword's faint glow their only light source besides Jill's tactical flashlight. The walls dripped with something that wasn't quite water, viscous, greenish, and warm to the touch. "The T-virus," Jill explained, her voice echoing off the curved tunnel walls. "It contaminates everything. Water, soil, air. That's why the infection spread so fast." He-Man studied the substance coating the walls. On Eternia, he'd faced magical plagues conjured by Skeletor, but this was different. This was science twisted into monstrosity, human ingenuity perverted into a weapon against humanity itself. Claire waited behind them, shotgun held high to keep it dry. "How far to the Nest?" 2 miles through these tunnels," Jill replied. "Then we reach the access point, a sealed door that should lead to Umbrella's facility. Should being the operative word." Something splashed in the darkness ahead. All three froze. He-Man raised his sword, its cracked blade pulsing weakly. The splash came again, closer, accompanied by a wet, dragging sound. From the shadows emerged something that had once been human, but the T-virus had transformed it into something far worse. Its skin had split open, exposing muscle and bone. Extra limbs sprouted from its torso, malformed arms ending in bone talons. Its jaw had distended impossibly wide, filled with multiple rows of teeth. Eyes, too many eyes, blinked independently across its face and neck. Liquor, Jill breathed. Advanced mutation. They're fast, strong. And the creature launched itself at He-Man with inhuman speed. He barely got his sword up in time. The Licker's claws raked across the blade with a screech of bone on metal. He-Man shoved it back and swung, severing two of its mutated limbs. Dark blood sprayed across the tunnel. But the creature didn't die. It adapted. The wounds sealed themselves with writhing flesh, new tissue bubbling up to replace what had been cut away. The Licker circled them, moving along the walls and ceiling with spider-like agility. "They regenerate," Jill warned, taking aim with her pistol. "You need to destroy the brain or burn them completely." He-Man watched the creature's movements, reading its attack patterns. Years of fighting Beastman's monstrosities had taught him patience. When the Licker lunged again, he didn't use the sword. Instead, he caught it mid-air with his bare hands and slammed it against the tunnel wall with such force that concrete cracked. Once, twice, 3 times. On the 4th impact, the creature's skull shattered, brain matter painting the wall. He-Man dropped the corpse into the water. "Regenerate from that. Remind me not to arm wrestle you," Claire muttered. They pressed deeper into the sewers. The water level rose to chest height in places, forcing them to swim. He-Man went first, using his strength to force open sealed gates that would have trapped ordinary survivors. Behind them, more sounds echoed, splashes, groans, the skittering of claws on stone. The sewers were full of infected, drawn by the movement and noise. After an hour of navigating the labyrinth, they reached a junction where 5 tunnels converged around a central chamber. In the chamber's center stood a reinforced metal door, built into the wall, clearly out of place among the aged brickwork. The umbrella logo was stamped across its surface. "That's it," Jill said. "The nest entrance." He-Man approached the door, examining its structure. Electronic keypad, biometric scanner, magnetic locks, technology far beyond what he'd seen on Eternia. "Can you open it?" Jill pulled out a small device from her vest. "TARS multi-tool. We use these for tactical entries. If the power's still running to this door..." She attached the device to the keypad and began working. Lights flickered. The device beeped twice, then displayed an error message. "Lockdown protocol," Jill cursed. "The system's been sealed from inside. Someone at Umbrella Command activated emergency measures." "Then we make our own entrance." He-Man raised the power sword. The crack in the blade had widened significantly, nearly splitting it in half now. He could feel the magic bleeding away with each passing moment. But he had enough for this. "By the power of Grayskull," he intoned quietly, and struck. The blade connected with the door in an explosion of sparks and screaming metal. The power sword's magic tore through electronic locks and reinforced steel like parchment. Alarms shrieked. Red lights began flashing throughout the sewer system. He-Man struck twice more, and the door collapsed inward with a thunderous crash. Beyond lay a pristine white corridor, LED lights humming to life automatically. The contrast was jarring, from medieval sewers to high-tech facility in a single step. Climate control washed over them, replacing the sewer's stench with sterile, recycled air. "We're in," Claire said unnecessarily. "And they know it," Jill added, pointing to security cameras that swiveled to track their movement. "That alarm alerted everyone. UBCS, Umbrella Security, whatever balls they have down here, they're all coming." He-Man stepped through the destroyed door, sword ready. The corridor stretched 50 feet before branching left and right. Signs on the walls read, "Research Division. Authorized personnel only. We need to find the main server room, Jill said. If there's proof of Umbrella's crimes, it'll be in their computer systems, research data, communication logs, evidence of deliberate infection. And samples, Claire added. If there's a cure or treatment, they'd keep samples here for study. He-Man moved forward, every sense alert. The corridor was too clean, too quiet. It reminded him of Skeletor's throne room before an ambush, the calm before violence. They turned right at the junction, following signs toward Research Division Alpha. The corridor opened into a massive laboratory space, rows of computers, examination tables, containment units filled with greenish fluid. And floating in those units were bodies, or what had been bodies before the T-virus transformed them into twisted experiments. Test subjects, Jill said, her voice hollow. They were experimenting on people. He-Man approached one containment unit. Inside floated a child, no more than 10 years old. The T-virus had mutated half their body, leaving one side human while the other was a mass of exposed muscle and bone. A placard on the unit read, Subject 47, T-virus strain compatibility test, deceased. Rage, white-hot and terrible, flooded through He-Man. On Eternia, even Skeletor's vilest experiments had limits. But this, experimenting on children, treating them like laboratory animals. Umbrella will answer for this, he said quietly, but his voice carried a promise of violence that made even Jill step back. She moved to the nearest computer terminal and began accessing files. I need a few minutes to download everything. Claire, watch the door. He-Man. The lights cut out. Emergency reds activated immediately, bathing everything in crimson. Then a voice echoed through hidden speakers, cultured, educated, utterly devoid of empathy. Well, well, unauthorized intruders in Sector 7, and one of you isn't even human, are you? My, what fascinating biological readings. A pause. I am Dr. William Birkin. This facility is my life's work, and you've just made a fatal mistake coming here. A hissing sound filled the lab. Panels in the walls slid open. From the darkness beyond emerged figures in tactical gear, UBCS mercenaries, a dozen of them, assault rifles trained on the trio. But worse than the soldiers were what came behind them. BOWs, bioorganic weapons, creatures that had been human once but were now living weapons. They stood 8 feet tall, muscled like gorillas, with exposed hearts pumping visibly in their chests. Claws replaced their hands, mouths full of fangs dripped with toxic saliva. Hunters, Jill identified, military-grade bows, fast, strong, intelligent enough to follow basic commands. Correct, Ms. Valentine, Birkin's voice purred. I see STARS training includes bow identification. How delightful. But you've never faced them in controlled circumstances, have you? Let me show you what true bioweapons can accomplish. The mercenaries opened fire. He-Man threw himself in front of Jill and Claire, the power sword deflecting bullets in a blur of motion. His enhanced reflexes let him track individual rounds, angling the blade to send them ricocheting harmlessly away. But he felt each impact strain the cracked sword, felt the magic weakening with every deflection. The hunters charged. The first hunter reached He-Man in 3 loping strides, claws extended for a killing strike. He-Man sidestepped and brought the power sword down in a devastating arc that severed the creature's arm at the shoulder. The hunter screamed, a sound mixing human agony with animal rage, and backhanded him with its remaining limb. The blow sent He-Man crashing through a computer bank. Sparks exploded around him. He rolled to his feet as 2 more hunters converged, their exposed hearts pulsing with accelerated metabolism. Behind him, Jill and Claire had taken cover behind examination tables, returning fire at the UBCS mercenaries. But their pistol and shotgun were woefully inadequate against tactical armor and superior numbers. We're pinned, Claire shouted, pumping her shotgun and dropping one mercenary with a blast to the knee. He-Man couldn't help them, not while 3 hunters circled him like predators. They'd learned from the first one's mistake, attacking in coordinated strikes. One lunged high, one swept low, the third came from his blind side. Pack tactics, intelligence. He-Man spun, the power sword tracing a defensive pattern that would have made his weapon's master proud. He caught the high attacker across the midsection, bisecting it. The low attacker met his boot, which caved in its skull with a sickening crunch. But the third hunter got through, its claws raking deep furrows across his back. Pain exploded through He-Man's nerve endings. The hunter's claws were coated in something: toxin, venom, engineered poison. His enhanced biology fought the infection, but he felt his movements slow, his strength momentarily sapped. The hunter pressed its advantage, pouncing on his back and driving him to the floor. Its jaws snapped toward his neck. He-Man caught them with his free hand, feeling teeth pierce his palm as he held the creature's mouth inches from his throat. With his other hand, he reversed his grip on the power sword and drove it backward through his own body. The blade punched through his torso, missing vital organs through sheer battle-honed precision, and into the hunter's exposed heart. The creature convulsed once, then went limp. He-Man shoved the corpse off and pulled the sword free from his own chest. Blood poured from the wound, but already his healing factor was sealing the damage. He stood, swaying slightly from blood loss and venom, and assessed the situation. 4 UBCS mercenaries remained, having taken cover behind steel storage containers. Jill was wounded, blood staining her shoulder where a bullet had grazed her. Claire had expended her shotgun shells and was down to a pistol with maybe half a magazine remaining. And more hunters were emerging from the opened wall panels, 6 fresh specimens, their claws clicking on the tile floor. The power sword pulsed weakly in He-Man's grip. The crack had spread further, nearly splitting the blade completely. One more major exertion and it would shatter. He had to choose. Use the sword's remaining magic to save his companions, or preserve it for whatever horrors awaited deeper in the nest. He-Man looked at Jill and Claire, fighting desperately against overwhelming odds. Looked at the child's body still floating in the containment unit. Looked at Dr. Birkin's speakers, knowing the scientist watched their struggle with academic interest. There was no choice. Not really. Jill, Claire, cover your eyes. He-Man raised the power sword high. I call upon the power of Grayskull. The blade exploded with light, pure radiant energy that banished the crimson emergency lighting. For a moment, the laboratory was illuminated as if by a star. The hunters shrieked, their sensitive eyes burning in the brilliance. The mercenaries staggered, temporarily blinded. He-Man moved. In the heartbeat of illumination before the sword's magic guttered out, he crossed the laboratory like a thunderbolt. The first mercenary died before he knew He-Man had moved. Necks snapped with surgical precision. The second managed to turn before He-Man's fist caved in his chest plate and sternum simultaneously. The third and fourth tried to run, but He-Man was faster. He grabbed both by their tactical harnesses and slammed them together with enough force to shatter spines. The hunters recovered from their blindness and attacked en masse, 6 against 1, all simultaneously. He-Man met them in close combat, abandoning the sword for pure physical might. He caught one by its jaw and tore it clean off. Punched another so hard its exposed heart exploded. Grabbed a third and used it as a bludgeon against the remaining 3. It was brutal, savage, more like Beastman's berserker rage than He-Man's usual controlled combat. But these weren't people anymore. They were weapons, created through torture and forced mutation. Ending them was mercy. When the last hunter fell, He-Man stood alone in the ruined laboratory, breathing hard. Blood, his and the creature's, painted him from head to toe, and in his hand, the power sword flickered once, twice, then went dark, The crack had become a complete break. The blade hung together by mere threads of magic. "He-Man!" Jill limped toward him, clutching her wounded shoulder. I've never seen anything like that." "Nor will you again," He-Man said quietly, looking at the shattered sword. "The magic is spent. He paused, feeling the transformation already beginning. The supernatural strength bleeding away, the enhanced durability fading. "I am just a man now." The transformation took him in seconds. His massive frame shrank to a more normal, though still athletic, human size. The barbarian garb remained, but it hung looser on Prince Adam's less imposing physique. His wounds, which had been healing rapidly, now bled normally. Claire stared. "You're different." "I am Adam," he said simply, "Prince of Eternia. He-Man was the power granted by Grayskull. Without the sword," he looked at the broken blade, "without it I am merely human." "Merely?" Jill almost laughed. "You just killed 10 bioweapons and 4 soldiers with your bare hands. But I cannot do it again, not without time to recover. Not without—" Adam tested his strength by lifting an examination table. He managed it, but it required effort that He-Man would have found laughable. "I am diminished," Dr. Birkin's voice echoed through the speakers again, now tinged with genuine fascination. "Remarkable. A transformation on a genetic level triggered by an external catalyst. The energy readings were off the charts. Tell me, Adam of Eternia, how does it feel to be reduced to baseline human? To know that everything below this laboratory can now kill you quite easily." Adam picked up the broken power sword, carefully wrapping the pieces in cloth torn from his garb. "It feels," he said to the ceiling speakers, "like justice is now within reach. He-Man inspired fear, but Adam can move unseen, can infiltrate, can destroy you from within." Bold words from someone who's bleeding from a dozen wounds. "Then send more creatures," Adam challenged. "But know this, I have fought as both God and man, and I have learned that sometimes it is the mortal warrior who achieves what the immortal cannot. Because I fight not with supernatural power now, but with something you will never understand." "And what's that?" "Choice." Adam turned to Jill and Claire. He-Man was bound by his power, limited by what the sword could and couldn't do. But as Adam, I choose every action, every sacrifice, every step forward, and I choose to end you, Dr. Birkin. I choose to expose Umbrella, and I choose to ensure no more children die in your containment units." Silence from the speakers. Then, quietly, "We'll see about that. You still have to reach me, and the nest has many, many more defenses between here and my laboratory." The line went dead. Jill finished bandaging her shoulder with torn cloth from her vest. "He's right. We're hurt, low on ammunition, and She gestured at Adam's diminished form. "No offense, but you're not invincible anymore." "No," Adam agreed. "I'm not, but I'm still a warrior, and we still have a mission." He looked at the computer terminal Jill had been accessing before the attack. "Did you get the files?" Jill checked. The download had completed, 30% before the power cut, stored on her tactical drive. Some. Not everything, but enough to prove illegal human experimentation. If we can get this to the outside world. "We will." Adam moved toward the far door, testing his now normal muscles. Every movement hurt. The hunter's toxin still burned in his system, but he'd endured worse training under his father's warriors. "Claire, how much ammunition?" 8 rounds, pistol. "That's it." "Jill?" "Maybe 20 bullets. And I'm hurt." Adam nodded. They were wounded, underarmed, and facing a facility full of bioweapons. Any sane person would retreat. But sanity had left Raccoon City days ago. "Then we improvise," Adam said. He picked up a fallen mercenary's assault rifle, checking its load. Full magazine. He took 2 more magazines from corpses, along with combat knives and a sidearm, distributed them to Jill and Claire, armed himself with what remained. "Prince Adam of Eternia," Jill said, a grim smile on her face. "You're absolutely insane." "Perhaps." Adam checked the assault rifle's action, his warrior training adapting easily to the unfamiliar weapon. "But Skeletor once told me that the difference between insanity and heroism is simply whether you survive. So let's survive." They moved toward the door. Beyond it, the nest's corridors stretched into darkness, full of nightmares and bioengineered death. But also, somewhere in those depths, was Dr. William Birkin and the truth about Umbrella's crimes. Adam took point, no longer the invincible champion, but merely a man with a rifle and determination. Sometimes that was enough. The nest's lower levels were a maze of laboratories, storage facilities, and holding pens designed to contain Umbrella's most dangerous experiments. Emergency lighting bathed everything in blood-red twilight. Alarms continued their steady wail, warning of intruders, breach protocols, systems failing. Adam led them through corridors lined with containment cells. In each one, horrors floated in preservation fluid or paced behind reinforced glass, failed experiments, successful weapons, things that might once have been human but were now so mutated that classification became meaningless. "They kept all of this under the city," Claire whispered, her voice hollow with horror. "For years, while people lived and worked and raised families right above them." "Evil hides in plain sight," Adam replied. His enhanced senses from years of warrior training picked up sounds ahead, mechanical whirring, hydraulic hissing. Something's moving. Large. They rounded a corner into a massive chamber, 3 stories tall, lined with catwalks and industrial equipment. At the chamber's center hung a cylindrical tank, 50 feet high and 20 wide, filled with bubbling green fluid. And suspended in that fluid was something massive, something that dwarfed even the hunters. "Tyrant Model T-103, Jill breathed, recognizing the configuration. "Experimental super soldier. They were supposed to be too unstable for deployment." The creature's eyes snapped open. Despite the preservative fluid, despite being supposedly dormant, it saw them. Its massive hand, easily the size of Adam's torso, pressed against the tank's interior surface. The glass creaked. "Move," Adam ordered. "Now!" They sprinted across the catwalk as the tank exploded behind them. Glass and preservative fluid erupted in a wave that nearly swept them off their feet. The tyrant emerged, standing slowly, fluid pouring off its muscled frame. It was naked except for tatters of medical equipment still clinging to its gray flesh. And it was angry. Adam turned and opened fire with the assault rifle. Bullets stitched across the tyrant's chest, punching through muscle but finding nothing vital. The creature tanked the damage and charged, each footstep shaking the catwalk. "Separate!" Adam shouted. "Claire, right. Jill, left. Flank it!" They split up, the 2 women taking side catwalks while Adam drew the tyrant's attention down the central path. The creature was fast, terrifyingly fast for something its size. It closed the distance in seconds, its massive fist swinging for Adam's head. Adam ducked under the blow and rolled, coming up firing. Aimed for the eyes this time, one shot connected, bursting the tyrant's left eye in a spray of vitreous fluid. The creature roared, the first sound it had made, and stumbled backward. Jill and Claire opened fire from the flanks, their combined assault tearing into the tyrant's exposed back. It spun to face them, giving Adam an opening. He dropped the empty rifle and drew the combat knife, sprinting toward the creature's back. Leaped, caught its shoulder ridges, climbed up its back like scaling a mountain. The tyrant thrashed, trying to dislodge him. Adam held on with one hand and drove the knife repeatedly into the base of the creature's skull, seeking the brainstem. Black blood poured over his hands. The creature's movements became erratic, uncoordinated. Then it did something unexpected. It fell backward. Adam had seconds to recognize the tactic before 300 pounds of bioengineered muscle crashed down on top of him. The catwalk crumpled under the combined weight. Steel shrieked, bolts sheared. Both Adam and the tyrant plummeted to the chamber floor 30 feet below. Adam hit first. The tyrant landed on top of him. Every bone in his body screamed. His ribs, definitely cracked, possibly broken. His left arm wouldn't respond. The knife was gone, lost in the fall, and the tyrant, despite the damage, was already rising. "Adam!" Claire's voice distant from above. The tyrant grabbed him by the throat, lifting his battered body like a toy. Its remaining eye studied him with something approaching curiosity. Here was prey that had fought back, had hurt it, had dared to challenge its superiority. The tyrant's grip tightened, crushing Adam's windpipe. Black spots danced across his vision. He grabbed the creature's wrist with his good hand, trying to pry those iron fingers loose, but without He-Man's strength, he might as well have been trying to bend steel. This is how it ends, he thought distantly. Not at Skeletor's hands, not in honorable combat on Eternia, but on a strange world in an underground facility, killed by a corporate weapon. He-Man would have torn free and destroyed this abomination. Prince Adam was just going to die. Then gunfire erupted from the catwalk, not the pistols Jill and Claire carried, but something heavier. Automatic weapons, military grade. The tyrant's back erupted in explosions of flesh and bone as armor-piercing rounds tore through it. The creature dropped Adam and turned to face this new threat. Through dimming vision, Adam saw figures on the catwalk, soldiers in different gear than the UBCS mercs. One stepped forward, a woman with short red hair and tactical armor that marked her as an officer. "Target the exposed heart," she commanded. "Full auto." The soldiers concentrated fire. The tyrant tried to charge them, but the hail of bullets staggered it backward. Its exposed heart, pulsing rapidly with bioengineered metabolism, exploded under sustained fire. The creature toppled, finally dead. Adam lay gasping on the floor, each breath agony. The soldiers rappelled down to the chamber floor. The red-haired woman approached him, assault rifle trained on his chest. "Identify yourself," she ordered. "Adam," he managed. "Just Adam." "And them?" She gestured to Jill and Claire on the catwalk. "My companions. We're trying to stop Birkin." The woman studied him for a long moment, her tactical visor scanning his battered form. Then she lowered her weapon slightly. "I'm Ada Wong, corporate spy. And before you ask, no, I don't work for Umbrella. My employer wants Birkin's research for other purposes. More corporations," Adam spat blood. "More people who see bioweapons as profit." Ada smiled coldly. "The world runs on profit, stranger. Umbrella's crime wasn't creating bioweapons, it was losing control of them. My employer won't make that mistake." Adam tried to stand and failed. His body was shutting down from trauma and blood loss. "Then you're no better than Birkin." "Maybe not," Ada signaled her soldiers. "But unlike Birkin, I keep my word. You helped thin out Umbrella's security for us. That deserves compensation. Jenkins, medical supplies. Patch him up enough to move." One soldier approached with a field medic kit. As he worked on Adam's injuries, injecting painkillers, wrapping broken ribs, setting his dislocated arm, Ada moved to a computer terminal built into the chamber wall. "What we're all after is in Birkin's personal laboratory," she said, typing rapidly. "Deck 7, Sector 0. That's where he keeps the G-virus samples and the master research database. UBCS is trying to reach it from the north access. We're hitting it from the south. And you three," she glanced at Adam, Jill, and Claire. "You're the wild cards nobody expected." "We're not here for virus samples," Jill said. having climbed down with Claire. "We're here for evidence. Proof of Umbrella's crimes to give to the authorities." Ada laughed, a genuinely amused sound. "Authorities? Sweetheart, half the authorities are on Umbrella's payroll. Why do you think the government quarantined the city instead of sending help?" "They're complicit." "Then we go public," Claire insisted. "News media, internet. We expose everything." "Maybe." Ada's expression turned calculating. "Or maybe we make a deal. You help me reach Birkin's lab before UBCS destroys it. I help you reach the surface with the evidence you've collected. You get your justice. I get my samples. Everyone wins." Adam forced himself to his feet, the painkillers taking edge off the agony. Every warrior instinct he possessed screamed that Ada was not to be trusted, but she'd saved his life. And without help, they'd never survive the remaining nest defenses. "How do we know you won't betray us?" he asked. "You don't," Ada smiled. "But consider, I could have let that tyrant kill you. Could let my team kill you right now. Instead, I'm offering partnership, temporary alliance of convenience." "Like making deals with Merman to fight Skeletor," Adam muttered. "Never ends well." "Who?" "Never mind." Adam looked at Jill and Claire. Both were exhausted, wounded, running on fumes and determination. They needed help. "What's your plan?" Ada brought up a facility schematic on the terminal. "Birkin's laboratory has 3 approaches. North Corridor. UBCS is fighting through there now. East Corridor, flooded with test subjects, completely impassable. South Corridor," she highlighted a route, "goes through the power generation sector. Restore main power. We can use the elevator system. Saves hours of fighting through every level." "And the catch?" Jill asked. "The catch is that the power sector is currently occupied by a failed experiment Umbrella tried to contain and couldn't quite kill." Ada pulled up a security footage file. The screen showed a creature that defied description, part human, part something else, constantly mutating and shifting. Its body was a mass of eyes, teeth, and grasping appendages that reconfigured themselves every few seconds. "What the hell is that?" Claire whispered. "They called it G. Birkin," Ada said. "William Birkin's earliest G-virus experiment on himself, before he learned to control the mutations. It's been down there for weeks, feeding on anything that wanders into its territory." Adam stared at the footage. This was beyond anything on Eternia, beyond even Skeletor's darkest creations. This was humanity's hubris made flesh, a scientist so obsessed with power that he'd transformed himself into a living nightmare. "So our choices," Adam said slowly, "are fight through UBCS forces, navigate flooded tunnels full of bioweapons, or face a self-mutating monster in the dark." "Correct." Adam looked at the broken pieces of the power sword, still wrapped in cloth at his belt. Without its magic, he was just a man. A skilled warrior, yes, but flesh and blood and entirely mortal. The smart choice was to retreat, to escape with what evidence they had, to survive. But he thought of the child in the containment tank, of the hundreds of test subjects floating in preservation fluid, of 200,000 people dead in Raccoon City's streets. Sometimes being a hero meant making the stupid choice. "We go through the power sector," Adam decided. "We face G. Birkin." Ada smiled, a predator's expression. "I was hoping you'd say that." The descent to the power sector took them through access tunnels that maintenance crews had once used, narrow, cramped passages lined with pipes and electrical conduits. Ada's team moved with professional efficiency, 2 soldiers on point, 2 guarding the rear, Ada and her lieutenant in the middle with Adam, Jill, and Claire. The painkillers made Adam's injuries bearable, but barely. Each breath sent sharp pains through his cracked ribs. His reset arm throbbed with every heartbeat. Without He-Man's healing factor, he'd need weeks to fully recover. He had hours at best before his body shut down from accumulated trauma. "Contact," the point soldier whispered into his comm. "Movement ahead, multiple signatures." They emerged into a junction where 4 tunnels met. The walls here were scored with claw marks. Old bloodstains painted abstract patterns across concrete, and shambling through the darkness came infected, dozens of them, drawn by noise and movement. "Suppressed fire," Ada ordered. "We can't alert G. Birkin yet." Her soldiers raised carbines fitted with suppressors and began dropping infected with precise headshots. The distinctive thwip-thwip of silenced weapons echoed flatly in the tunnel. Bodies crumpled, but more kept coming, drawn by some instinct that transcended death. Adam borrowed a pistol from one of Ada's soldiers and joined the defense. Without enhanced strength or speed, he relied purely on training. The marksmanship his father's warriors had drilled into him during his youth as Prince Adam, before the Power Sword, before He-Man. Each shot was deliberate, controlled, aimed for maximum lethality. An infected in a tattered business suit lunged at him. Adam sidestepped, using technique rather than supernatural reflexes, and fired twice. Both rounds punched through the creature's skull. It dropped at his feet. "Not bad," Ada observed. "For someone who carries a sword, you shoot pretty well." "I'm a prince," Adam replied, dropping another infected with a carefully aimed shot. "I was trained in all forms of combat before I ever held the Power Sword. Bow, blade, spear, and yes, even firearms. Eternia may lack your technology, but we understand that a warrior masters every available weapon." The infected wave finally broke. Bodies littered the junction, 30 or more, all now permanently dead. Ada checked her tactical display. "Power sector entrance is 50 meters ahead. Beyond that door, we're in G. Birkin's territory. Stay tight. Move fast. Don't stop for anything." They reached a reinforced blast door marked "Power Generation. Authorized personnel only. Extreme hazard." Ada's technical specialist worked on the lock while the rest formed a defensive perimeter. Seconds crawled by. Distant sounds echoed through the tunnels. Screams, gunfire, explosions. The UBCS forces were fighting their own battles deeper in the nest. The blast door hissed open, revealing a massive chamber beyond. The power sector was a cathedral of machinery, fusion reactors humming with barely contained energy, generator turbines spinning at thousands of RPM, transformers crackling with high voltage. Catwalks crisscrossed the space at multiple levels, and everywhere the walls were covered with organic growth, pulsing, wet, alive. "Jesus," one of Ada's soldiers breathed. "It's spread." "G. Birkin's biomass," Ada explained grimly. "The virus makes the host constantly mutate. Birkin's cells have been incorporating the facility itself into his body mass. He's not just in the power sector, he is the power sector." As if responding to her words, the organic growth shuddered. Eyes, hundreds of them, opened across the walls, all focusing on the intruders. Mouths formed in the biomass, gasping and moaning. And from the chamber's center, something rose. G. Birkin was a nightmare given flesh. His body was humanoid only in the loosest sense, constantly shifting, reconfiguring, growing new appendages and absorbing old ones. What might have been his original head jutted from a shoulder, William Birkin's face still recognizable but twisted in permanent agony. The rest was chaos, teeth, claws, tentacles, all emerging from a central mass that pulsed with viral activity. "Interlopers," a voice gurgled from multiple mouths simultaneously. "Thieves, come to steal. My work. My perfection." "That thing can talk?" Claire's voice shook. Birkin's consciousness is still in there, Ada said. Somewhere, fighting to maintain coherence against the virus's mutation drive. It's what makes G different from T. The host retains intelligence. Most of the time, G. Birkin's massive form crashed onto the main catwalk, metal groaning under its weight. It was fast, terrifyingly fast. Tentacles lashed out, forcing them to scatter. Adam rolled left, coming up firing. His bullets punched into the creature's biomass, but the wounds sealed instantly, flesh bubbling and reforming. Concentrated fire on the exposed organs, Ada commanded. There, the hearts. 4 of them, each keeping him alive. Adam spotted them, pulsing masses of tissue visible through gaps in Birkin's shifting anatomy. He aimed carefully and squeezed off 2 shots. One heart exploded in a spray of blood. The creature howled, "You dare! I am perfection! I am evolution incarnate!" More tentacles erupted from Birkin's mass, these ones tipped with bone spurs and dripping toxic secretions. One caught Ada's lieutenant, piercing through his tactical armor and lifting him screaming into the air. The man fired his carbine wildly as he was pulled toward one of Birkin's mouths. Adam sprinted across the catwalk, ignoring his protesting ribs, his aching muscles, all the injuries that would have stopped a normal man. He leaped, grabbing the tentacle with his good hand and driving his borrowed combat knife into the appendage with his injured arm. The blade sank deep. Black blood sprayed. The tentacle released the lieutenant, who fell hard onto a lower catwalk. Adam rode the thrashing appendage, stabbing repeatedly until it released him and he dropped onto a transformer housing. Electricity arced around him, close enough to feel his hair stand on end. Below, Jill and Claire had reached the power control station, a reinforced booth housing the reactor controls. If they could shut down the main generators, the entire sector would go dark. G. Birkin drew power from the facility's energy. Cut that, and maybe they'd have a chance. "Jill," Adam shouted, "the power! Kill it!" She heard him, began working the controls. But G. Birkin had noticed too. A massive claw, easily 15 feet long, smashed toward the control booth. Ada intercepted with a grenade launcher she'd produced from somewhere, the explosive round detonating against the claw and severing it. The claw regenerated in seconds, but it bought Jill time. Almost there, Jill worked frantically, initiating emergency shutdown in 10 seconds. "All of you will become part of my perfection," Birkin's many mouths screamed. "I will integrate your biomass, improve upon your inferior forms. You will thank me as I evolve you into—" The power died. Every light, every machine, every humming generator went silent simultaneously. Total darkness swallowed the chamber. Then emergency batteries kicked in, casting everything in dim red. G. Birkin's screams echoed through the chamber, no longer triumphant, but agonized. His biomass began withering, the viral processes requiring massive energy consumption to maintain. Without the facility's power to feed on, his mutations turned on themselves. "Now!" Ada shouted. "All weapons on the hearts, bring him down!" They concentrated fire on the exposed organs. 2 more hearts ruptured under sustained assault. G. Birkin thrashed wildly, his diminishing mass lashing out in death throes. A tentacle caught one of Ada's soldiers and crushed him like an insect. Another smashed through a catwalk, sending 2 more soldiers plummeting into the reactor pit below. Adam emptied his pistol into the 4th heart. The organ burst like an overripe fruit. G. Birkin's howls reached a crescendo, then cut off abruptly. The massive form collapsed, biomass liquefying and pouring across the chamber floor like spilled paint. Silence fell, broken only by dripping fluids and their own ragged breathing. Adam slid down from the transformer housing, landing hard and immediately regretting it as his ribs protested. He limped toward where the others were gathering at the control booth. Ada had lost 3 soldiers, half her team. The survivors looked shaken but professional. "Is it dead?" Claire asked, staring at the spreading pool of biomass. "For now," Ada replied. "G-virus hosts can regenerate from incredible damage, but we bought ourselves time." She activated her tactical display. "Birkin's laboratory is directly above us, one level up through the maintenance elevator that just lost power." "Can we restore it?" Jill asked. "Emergency generator," Ada pointed to a smaller unit in the corner. "But it'll take 10 minutes to spin up, and the noise will attract everything in the nest." Adam looked at the broken pieces of the power sword, still wrapped at his belt. Without magic, he was running on fumes, injuries, exhaustion, and sheer stubborn will. Around him, 2 women who'd already endured more than most people faced in a lifetime, and a corporate spy with her own agenda. "Then we hold this position," Adam said. 10 minutes. Whatever comes through those doors, we stop it here." Ada smiled, that predator's expression again. "You really are insane." "I prefer heroic." Adam checked his pistol. Empty. He took a fresh magazine from one of the fallen soldiers, reloaded, and chambered around. "But you're probably right." The emergency generator sputtered to life. Its engine roar echoed through the nest like a dinner bell. And in the darkness beyond the chamber, things began moving toward the sound. They came from every direction. Infected poured through the access tunnels, hundreds of them, drawn by the generator's mechanical scream. Hunters loped along the walls and ceiling, their claws sparking against metal. And behind them, something worse, something that shook the floor with each footstep. "Tyrant class," Ada's soldier shouted. 2 of them. Adam took position at the main entrance, the others spreading to cover the 3 other tunnel mouths. His borrowed assault rifle felt strange in his hands compared to the power sword's familiar weight, but weapons were weapons. Point at enemy, pull trigger, repeat until threat eliminated. The first wave hit like a tsunami. Adam fired in controlled bursts, dropping infected with headshots as they funneled through the doorway. Beside him, Jill worked her pistol with STARS precision. Claire handled the shotgun Ada had given her, each blast clearing multiple targets at close range. "Generator at 40%, Ada called from the control booth. 6 minutes. A hunter burst through the infected ranks, clearing the doorway in a single leap. Adam tracked it midair and fired. The burst caught it in the exposed heart, and the creature crashed dead at his feet. Another followed immediately. Jill got that one. Then 2 more. Then 4. "Reloading," Adam shouted, ejecting his spent magazine. A hunter lunged during the reload. Claire's shotgun took it in the face, but the recoil threw her backward. Another hunter pounced on the opening. Adam dropped the rifle, drew his combat knife, and met the creature's charge with a desperate tackle. They crashed through the railing and fell 15 feet to the catwalk below. The impact drove the breath from Adam's lungs. The hunter recovered first, its claws raking across his chest. Pain exploded through him, fresh wounds overlaying old injuries. He stabbed blindly, repeatedly, until the knife found something vital and the creature went limp. Adam shoved the corpse off and tried to stand. His legs buckled. The painkillers were wearing off, and his body was finally giving out. Cracked ribs, dislocated arm, dozens of cuts and bruises, blood loss, exhaustion. It was all catching up. "Adam," Jill's voice from above. "Get up. More coming." He forced himself to his feet through sheer will, climbed the ladder back to the upper catwalk, one agonizing rung at a time, retrieved his rifle, took position, fired. The tyrants arrived. 2 of them, both T-103 models like the one that had attacked the police station. They moved with terrible purpose, ignoring the gunfire that would have stopped lesser creatures. Ada's remaining soldiers focused everything on them, armor-piercing rounds tearing chunks from gray flesh. The tyrants kept coming. One grabbed a soldier and tore him in half. The other backhanded its attacker into a wall hard enough to leave a crater. Only Ada remained of her team now, and even she was falling back toward the control booth. "Generator at 70%, she shouted. 3 minutes. 3 minutes. An eternity. The tyrants split up, one advancing on Ada's position, the other stalking toward Adam, Jill, and Claire. Adam fired until his rifle clicked empty, then drew the combat knife again. He was done running, done retreating. If he died here, at least he'd die fighting. The tyrant's massive hand reached for him. Adam ducked under it and drove the knife into the creature's wrist, twisting. The tyrant barely noticed. It grabbed him with its other hand, lifting him off the catwalk. Through the pain and haze, Adam saw the broken power sword pieces at his belt, saw the faint glow still emanating from them despite the shattered blade. The magic wasn't completely gone, just dormant, waiting. Maybe enough for one last transformation, one final surge of He-Man's power. But using it would destroy the sword completely, would leave him stranded on this world forever, unable to return to Eternia even if he found a way home. The tyrant's grip tightened, crushing his ribs. He heard bones crack, felt consciousness starting to slip. Behind him, Jill screamed as infected swarmed her position. Claire's shotgun clicked empty. Ada was pinned down by the second tyrant. They were losing. Adam reached for the sword pieces with his free hand, grasped them despite the pain, felt the magic respond to his touch, weak but willing. "I have the power," he whispered. Light exploded from the broken blade, not the brilliant radiance of before, but a dying star's last flare. The transformation took him, but differently this time. He didn't become He-Man fully. Instead, he existed between forms, Prince Adam's body enhanced by Grayskull's fading magic, caught halfway between mortal and champion. It was enough. He tore free of the tyrant's grip with strength that surprised them both, drove the glowing sword fragments into the creature's exposed heart. The magic in metal punched through bioengineered tissue, and the tyrant stumbled backward. Adam twisted the blade remnants like a key, and the creature collapsed. But the effort cost him. The sword pieces crumbled to dust in his hands, the last magic consumed. Adam fell to his knees as the partial transformation faded, leaving him completely mortal once more. "Generator at 90%, Ada's voice. 30 seconds. The remaining tyrant abandoned its assault on Ada and charged toward the control booth. If it destroyed the generator, they'd be trapped. Adam tried to stand and couldn't. His body was finally, truly done. Then Jill was there, pressing her pistol into his hands. "Last magazine," she said. "Make it count." Adam looked at the charging tyrant, at the control booth, at the impossibility of making this shot with a handgun at this distance, with failing vision and shaking hands. He thought of his father teaching him to shoot, of the hours spent on Eternia's ranges, learning that a warrior's weapon was only as good as the warrior wielding it, of every lesson, every drill, every moment of training that had prepared him for the one shot that mattered. Adam raised the pistol, steadied his breathing, ignored the pain, found the stillness at his center. The tyrant was 10 feet from the control booth when Adam fired. The bullet flew true, entered through the creature's remaining eye, punched through brain tissue, exited through the back of its skull. The tyrant crashed down, momentum carrying it into the control booth's wall. But the generator survived. 100%, Ada slammed the activation switch. "Elevators live! Go!" They ran, Adam supported between Jill and Claire, Ada covering their retreat. The maintenance elevator was an industrial platform, barely large enough for 4 people. They crammed onto it as infected poured into the chamber behind them. Ada hit the up button. The elevator rose with agonizing slowness. Below, the horde filled the power sector, mindless faces staring up at their escaping prey. Adam watched them recede, thinking of the people they'd been, thinking of the children in containment tanks, thinking of 200,000 dead in the streets above. This was what evil looked like when it wore a corporate logo. The elevator reached the upper level. They stumbled into a pristine corridor, white walls, LED lighting, air conditioning. The contrast was jarring. At the corridor's end, a door marked Dr. William Birkin, Chief Researcher, Authorized Personnel Only. "That's it," Ada said. "His personal laboratory. Everything we need is behind that door." They approached carefully. Ada worked the lock while Jill tended Adam's injuries with the last of their medical supplies. Claire kept watch, her borrowed pistol trained on the elevator shaft. "Ribs are broken," Jill said quietly. "Multiple fractures. You've got internal bleeding, probably a punctured lung. Adam, you need a hospital." "After," he managed. "Evidence first, justice first." "Noble," Ada observed, finishing with the lock. "But stupid. You're dying." "Then I'll die after we expose Umbrella's crimes." Adam forced himself to his feet one more time. "Open it." Ada pushed the door open. Beyond lay William Birkin's inner sanctum, a laboratory that would have made Skeletor's dungeons look primitive. Computer banks lined the walls. Containment units held virus samples in every developmental stage. And in the center, a massive holographic display showed a rotating DNA helix being systematically altered. "The G-virus," Ada breathed. "Complete genome mapping. This is everything." She moved to the main computer and began downloading. Jill found filing cabinets full of paper records, test results, experiment logs, communication with Umbrella executives ordering continued human trials despite safety concerns. Evidence, proof, everything they needed. Adam leaned against a wall, his strength finally gone. He watched them work, feeling his consciousness fade. His wounds were too severe. He'd pushed too far, fought too hard. Even He-Man would have struggled to survive this much damage. "Got it," Ada announced, holding up a data drive. "Complete research database. G-virus samples secured. Umbrella's secrets are mine." "Ours," Jill corrected, holding up her own data drive. "I copied everything too. This goes public." Ada smiled. "I suppose we both get what we want. How very efficient." She moved toward a secondary exit. "There's an emergency elevator here. Goes straight to surface level. My extraction team will be waiting." She paused at the door. "Prince Adam of Eternia, you fought well for someone without powers. Your world should be proud." "If I ever see it again," Adam said quietly. "Maybe you will." Ada tossed him something, a small vial of amber liquid. "G-virus antidote. Birkin's personal supply. Won't help with your injuries, but it'll keep you from turning if you've been infected. Consider it payment for clearing my path." She left before anyone could respond. Jill and Claire helped Adam to the emergency elevator. They rode it up in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. When the doors opened, they found themselves in an abandoned parking structure at the city's edge. Dawn light streamed through the open levels. The quarantine wall rose in the distance. They'd made it out of the nest, out of Umbrella's nightmares. But Raccoon City still burned around them. "We need to find a way past the quarantine," Jill said. "Get this evidence to someone who will actually do something with it. And get you to a doctor," Claire added, looking at Adam's pale face. Adam looked at the broken pieces of the power sword, now just dust scattered across his belt. Looked at the city dying around them. Looked at two women who'd endured hell itself and still fought for justice. "Then let's finish this," he said, "for everyone who died, for everyone who survived, for every world where evil wears a respectable face." They moved toward the exit together. Behind them, deep beneath the city, Umbrella's secrets lay exposed. Above them, dawn painted the sky in shades of hope. The battle wasn't over, But for the first time since arriving in this nightmare, Adam believed they might actually win. The journey through Raccoon City's outer districts was a gauntlet of horror. The infection had spread to every corner, every street, every building. But they moved with purpose now, following evacuation routes marked on Claire's salvaged map. Adam pushed through pain that would have killed a lesser warrior, supported between the two women. They found a military checkpoint at the quarantine wall, but the soldiers were dead, torn apart by infected that had overwhelmed their position. The guardhouse still stood, however, and inside they found working communications equipment. Jill worked the radio while Claire fortified their position. Adam slumped against a wall, his breathing labored and wet. The punctured lung was getting worse. Blood flecked his lips when he coughed. "This is Jill Valentine, STARS. Raccoon City Police Department," Jill transmitted on every frequency. "We have evidence of Umbrella Corporation's illegal bioweapons research, human experimentation, deliberate viral outbreak. We need immediate extraction and media presence. Repeat, we have evidence that will expose everything." Static answered her. Then, finally, a voice. "Ms. Valentine, this is Colonel Anderson, United States Army. Your transmission has been recorded. However, I'm not authorized to extract civilians from the quarantine zone. My orders are clear." "Your orders are to cover up genocide," Jill interrupted. "Sir, with respect, we have proof that Umbrella created the T-virus and G-virus as bioweapons. Proof they experimented on children. Proof they let 200,000 people die to protect their profits. If you don't extract us, this evidence dies with us, and Umbrella walks away clean." Silence. Then, "Stand by." They waited. Minutes stretched like hours. Outside, infected pressed against their barricades, drawn by the radio's noise. Claire fired through a window slit, conserving ammunition, dropping only the closest threats. Adam watched them fight, these two ordinary women facing extraordinary evil. No powers, no magic swords, just courage and determination. They were everything a hero should be, not because of what they could do, but because of what they chose to do. "Ms. Valentine," the radio crackled back to life. "A news helicopter is requesting permission to enter the quarantine zone. Claims they're covering the Raccoon City incident. If that helicopter were to, hypothetically, pick up survivors with important information, well, I can't control civilian aircraft, can I?" Jill smiled for the first time since the nightmare began. "No, sir, I suppose you can't. There's a clear landing zone 3 blocks north. Old high school football field. Get there in 20 minutes, and maybe a news crew finds you. Maybe they don't. Officially, this conversation never happened." "Understood. Thank you, Colonel." "Don't thank me yet. You still have to survive the next 3 blocks. Anderson out." They moved immediately. Adam walked on his own now, refusing to slow them down despite his failing body. 3 blocks. He could manage 3 blocks. He'd fought through Skeletor's traps, survived Snake Mountain's dungeons, stood against the Horde armies. 3 blocks through infected-filled streets was nothing, except it was everything. They encountered a Horde at the first intersection, 50 infected, maybe more. Adam and Claire provided covering fire, while Jill found an alternate route through a collapsed building. They climbed through rubble, squeezed through gaps, emerged in an alley behind the shambling masses. 2 blocks remaining. A hunter dropped from a fire escape, claws extended. Claire's shotgun was empty. Jill's pistol jammed. Adam threw himself between them and the creature, taking its claws across his shoulder instead of Claire's throat. He drove his combat knife up through the hunter's jaw into its brain. They fell together, warrior and monster, and only Adam rose, 1 block remaining. The football field appeared ahead, overgrown and abandoned, and descending toward it, a news helicopter with Channel 7 emblazoned on its side. The pilot was crazy or brave or both, bringing a civilian aircraft into a zombie-infested quarantine zone. But he was their ticket out. They ran the final stretch. Behind them, alarms began blaring throughout the city. Not Umbrella's alarms, but something else. Something military. Adam glanced back and saw it in the distance. A missile streaking across the dawn sky, heading straight for Raccoon City's center. "They're sterilizing the city," Jill shouted. "Run!" The helicopter touched down. A cameraman waved frantically from the open door. They sprinted across the field as infected poured from surrounding buildings, drawn by the helicopter's noise. Adam's legs gave out 20 feet from the aircraft. He pitched forward, unable to force his body to move anymore. Claire and Jill grabbed him, hauled him the final distance. Hands reached down from the helicopter, the cameraman, a reporter, the pilot's co-pilot. They pulled Adam aboard, then Jill, then Claire. The helicopter lifted off as infected reached the landing skids, their grasping hands falling short by inches. The missile hit Raccoon City's center. The explosion was blinding, a miniature sun rising over the doomed metropolis. The shockwave hit the helicopter seconds later, spinning it wildly. The pilot fought for control, gaining altitude, pulling them away from the expanding fireball. From their vantage point, they watched Raccoon City die. The nuclear fire consumed everything. Streets they'd walked, buildings they'd sheltered in, the police station, the nest facility below. 200,000 infected, and whatever survivors remained. All of it erased in purifying flame. "Did you get the footage?" Jill asked the cameraman who'd been filming throughout their escape. He nodded, face pale. "Every second. The city, the infected, you three fighting your way out. It's all recorded." "Good." Jill held up her data drive. "Because we're about to tell the world exactly what Umbrella Corporation did here." The reporter, a woman in her 30s with determined eyes, raised her microphone. "Who are you? What happened down there?" "My name is Jill Valentine. This is Claire Redfield, and this..." Jill looked at Adam, who lay propped against the helicopter's bulkhead, blood staining his makeshift bandages. "This is Prince Adam. He's from another world, and he helped save ours." The camera turned to Adam. He managed a weak smile. "Tell them," he said to the reporter. "Tell them about Umbrella. About the children in the tanks, about the experiments, about corporate evil that values profit over human life. Tell them so this never happens again." "I will," the reporter promised. "The whole world will know." Adam's eyes drifted closed. He'd done what he came to do, not save Eternia this time, but save people who needed a champion. The power sword was gone, destroyed to give him the strength for one last stand. He might never return home, might die from his injuries here in this strange world. But he'd lived up to the oath He-Man represented, had proven that the power wasn't in the sword, but in the choice to stand against darkness. As consciousness faded, Adam heard Jill speaking to him. "Stay with us, Adam. We're going to get you to a hospital. You're going to survive this. You're going to..." Her voice faded to nothing. 3 months after Raccoon City's destruction, Prince Adam of Eternia woke in a hospital bed, sunlight streaming through the window of a facility far from the quarantine zone. His wounds had healed, slowly, painfully, but completely. Modern medicine had achieved what even Eternia's healers might have struggled with. The world had changed in his absence. Jill and Claire's testimony, combined with the evidence from the nest and the news footage, had sparked international investigations into Umbrella Corporation. Criminal charges were filed, arrests were made. The corporate empire that had seemed invincible was crumbling under the weight of its own evil exposed to light. But the T-virus hadn't died with Raccoon City. Ada Wong's employer, whoever they were, had the G-virus data. Other corporations were developing their own bioweapons, learning from Umbrella's mistakes. The fight wasn't over. It had simply moved to new battlefields. Jill visited him that afternoon, bringing news that Umbrella's executives were facing trial. Claire had found her brother Chris. Both were now working to expose bioweapons facilities worldwide, and they'd been asking about him. "The world thinks you're a survivor from out of state," Jill explained. "Someone who was visiting Raccoon City when the outbreak happened. We kept your real origin quiet. Figured you'd want that." "Thank you," Adam said. His hand went instinctively to his belt, where the power sword had once hung. Only empty air remained. "I can never go home now. The sword's magic was the only thing that could open portals between worlds." "I'm sorry." Jill's expression was genuine. "But for what it's worth, you have a home here if you want it. People who remember what you did, who know what you sacrificed." Adam looked out the window at this strange world. No Castle Grayskull, no Eternia, no sorceress or man-at-arms or Tila. But people who fought against evil regardless. People who proved that heroism didn't require magic or powers, just the courage to stand when standing mattered most. "Maybe that's enough," he said quietly. "He-Man protected one world. Perhaps Prince Adam can help protect this one." Jill smiled and placed something on his bedside table, a newspaper. The headline read, "Umbrella Corporation Faces Justice," and below it, in smaller text, "Survivors testify to bioweapons conspiracy." The battle wasn't over. Bioweapons still existed, corporate greed still thrived, evil still wore respectable faces. But for the first time in months, there was hope. The kind of hope that came from ordinary people doing extraordinary things. The kind of hope that didn't require a magic sword. As Jill left, Adam picked up the newspaper and read the full story. Somewhere on Eternia, Skeletor still schemed, Beastman still raided villages, evil still threatened his home. But he couldn't fight those battles anymore, so he would fight the battles here instead, not as He-Man, champion of Grayskull, but as Adam, warrior of Earth, proving that the power wasn't in the sword, it was in the choice to wield it. And that choice remained his, now and always. May the Force be with you. More stories await.